this party.
What's up, dudes and dudettes? Brockster Craft Animations here. Today, I'm once again doing a historic camp, Defunct video. For this video, if you live in Ohio, you probably know that there are two amusement parks, by the names of Cedar Point and Kings Island. Both of these parks are operated by Cedar Fair. But if you grew up in Ohio for a long time, then you probably know that there was originally a third park, that operated for 120 years, known as Geauga Lake. This amusement park once operated in a small town in Ohio, called Aurora. And suddenly in 2007, that park closed its doors without warning. This is the story of Geauga Lake. The history dates all the way back to 1872, but let's start off back in 1817. A man named Sullivan Giles chose that Ohio area for his log cabin. He later built a large frame home on the spot behind Geauga Lake Depot on the north side of the lake. During that time, railroad trains were expanding all over the world. And then when the railroad came to town in 1856, it made a stop at Pond Station. In 1872, Giles took advantage of his scenic lake location, and in the last half of the 19th century, established the property as picnic grounds and a swimming area. There was also a dance hall, and other entertainment near Giles' home for the all-day pleasure of residents and those taking the train to the country. The property at that time was called Giles Pond. However, in 1887, Geauga Lake Park was established. 3 Major League Baseball games were the park's main attraction and played on Sundays at Geauga Lake in 1888, plus a Thursday exhibition game by the Cleveland Forest Cities of the Major League American Association. In 1889, the land took a big shift into an amusement park when it officially installed its first ride, a classic steam-powered carousel. In 1925, the legendary Big Dipper wooden roller coaster was built, and the park made its Olympic-sized swimming pool. Lake swimming also continued over the coming decades. The Big Dipper was the largest roller coaster in the world when it first opened, being 65 feet. The park, just like many other amusement parks at the time, also had a theater and bowling alley, making them year-round attractions. The original carousel was removed and in 1937, the park's 1926 hand-carved Marcus Ilian's Grand Carousel was added, after having been located in Philadelphia and Birmingham. In 1942, a tornado struck the area and hit the Big Dipper. However, the Big Dipper was quickly fixed up. Then 10 years later, a fire broke out, destroying the bowling alley, theater, dance hall, and roller rink with an estimated $500,000. After that, the park became strictly a seasonal amusement park, beach, and swimming area. In 1969, Funtime Parks Incorporated purchased the park. This meant that the focus was to turn Geauga Lake into a modern-day amusement park, and continue with rides and swimming. The first action was to close the racetrack in that same year. Meanwhile, in 1970, a marine life park, called SeaWorld Ohio, was built across the lake from the amusement park after Funtime persuaded SeaWorld to build the marine park on the other side of the lake. Throughout its life, SeaWorld Ohio was the second SeaWorld park to open, right after SeaWorld San Diego opened, where SeaWorld Ohio would also be the shortest in the chain. Despite SeaWorld and Geauga being close and in separate townships, the two parks were friendly neighbors for almost 30 years. Geauga Lake focused on thrill rides, and SeaWorld focused on educational sea life stuff, such as the famous Shamu killer whales, sea lions, and dolphins. After SeaWorld's 1970 opening, the two parks continued to work together to turn Aurora, Ohio into a fun destination. Meanwhile, back across the lake in 1972, the Gold Rush log flume water ride was added, and 2 years later, Geauga Lake added the skyscraper in 1974. The skyscraper was an observation gyro tower which took passengers 21 stories up for views of the park. Admission to the park was free until 1972. Until then, rides on various attractions were purchased on a pay-as-you-go basis. Beginning in 1973, the park converted to an admission charge with a pay-one price for all the rides and attractions. The park previously had a BA Schiff Wild Mouse roller coaster, but that was relocated to Ohio's now defunct Chippewa Lake. The Geauga dog became the park's mascot, and would remain so until 1999. In 1976, the park added the Wildcat compact steel roller coaster named Cyclone, and a year later in 1977, the park added the Double Loop. The Double Loop, better yet, was the first steel roller coaster to feature 2 consecutive vertical loops. A year later in 1978, the corkscrew made its debut. Just like Double Loop, this coaster was also manufactured by Aero Development. Since both it and the Double Loop were made by Aerodynamics, their trains would often switch out. Swimming in the lake continued to be a feature at the park, and in 1983, the park added Boardwalk Shores, which featured a paddleboat marina, a new bathhouse, a children's swimming pool area and water slides. A year later, The Wave, the only authentic tsunami wave pool in the Midwest at the time, opened to rave reviews. In 1986, more children's rides were added and themed as Rainbow Island, a children's dry area. Stingray water slides and the Euro Racer Grand Prix rides were added. In 1988, Geauga Lake celebrated its centennial 100-year anniversary by introducing the Raging Wolf Bob's wooden coaster, with a hybrid twist/out. 2 years later, the park re-themed the children's water area as Turtle Beach, which was advertised as the ultimate children's water playground. Geauga Lake expanded its midway with the Mirage and the $2.1 million Texas Twister in the early 1990s. A corporate deal in 1995 saw Premier Parks acquiring Funtime, giving Geauga Lake a new owner. Premier Parks invested $9 million in new rides, including the Mind Eraser, which was a Vekoma boomerang coaster, and Grizzly Run, which was a water rapids ride designed by Intamin. These attractions opened in 1996, and the corkscrew was closed, sold, and moved to Dizzy World in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India, where it still operates there today as Roller Coaster. In 1998, Serial Thriller, which was a Vekoma SLC suspended looping coaster, was added. Coincidentally enough, another Serial Thriller existed at the now defunct Astroworld. In that same year, another change would come, which would entirely transform Geauga Lake. In 1998, Premier Parks purchased Six Flags from Time Warner, allowing many of the parks the Premier purchased to be given the Six Flags name. This also allowed licensing such as DC Comics and Looney Tunes. In 1999, a Ferris wheel named Americana, Time Warp, which was a chance inverter, and an upcharge attraction Sky Coaster, named Ripcord, were added. In 2000, Geauga Lake received a $40 million expansion, which would feature 4 new roller coasters. The site of the old wave pool would be rebuilt as a children's section called Looney Tunes Boomtown. And on May 4th, the park reopened as Six Flags Ohio. One of these 4 new roller coasters was the Roadrunners Express. This Zero Junior coaster provided an introduction experience for younger audiences. Next was a wooden steel hybrid coaster, named the Villain. This coaster was built by CCI/Custom Coasters International, who also created Megazeph at Jazzland, and Boulder Dash at Lake Compounce. Next was Superman, Ultimate Escape, which was an impulse coaster that took riders up into 2 vertical corkscrews. And last but not least, was Batman, Night Flight. This BAMP steel floorless coaster held the record for what was, at that time, the tallest vertical loop in the world. The coaster also held the record for world's longest floorless coaster, which it still holds today. Busch Entertainment determined that its SeaWorld parks should feature roller coasters, water rides, and other attractions to supplement the marine displays and shows, and the company began toning down the educational aspects of its parks. They began modifying their Orlando, San Antonio, and to a lesser extent their San Diego parks to reflect this. Due to Six Flags Ohio's close proximity, as well as the fact that the SeaWorld side of the lake had height restrictions, Busch approached Six Flags about buying the Six Flags park. Six Flags then made a counter-offer to instead buy SeaWorld Ohio. That winter, Six Flags purchased SeaWorld for $110 million in cash, merging the 2 complexes into one, and changing the entire complex's name to Six Flags Worlds of Adventure.
A thrill park, a water park, and a sea life park. It's the only theme park of its kind in the world. Come celebrate the opening of America's new entertainment capital, Six Flags Worlds of Adventure.
When the park opened at that time, Worlds of Adventure was the largest amusement park in the world, spanning the size of 700 acres. No offense to Geauga Lake fans, but Worlds of Adventure was said 700 acres, but Walt Disney World today is 24,000 acres. The original Geauga Lake section became known as the Wild Rides area, while the SeaWorld side became known as the Wildlife Area and remained primarily marine life shows, with a few portable children's rides placed throughout. The Hurricane Harbor Water Park also was expanded and referred to as the Wild Slides section, calling the park as 3 parks in one. The Geauga side continued expanding with a roller coaster that drew in media attention. X-Flight, which was one of only 3 Vekoma Flying Dutchman coasters. Facing financial difficulties across its chain and high debt, Six Flags considered selling the park. The park's attendance in the 2001 season went from 2.7 million guests to 700,000 guests. 2 months before the 2004 season, a sale to Cedar Fair, the owner of Cedar Point, which is located 85 miles and 3 hours away from Worlds of Adventure, was announced. The deal was finalized less than a month later for $145 million. Since Six Flags no longer owned the park, the name was switched back into its original name, Geauga Lake, mostly because they wanted to return the park into a family-sized amusement park. To confirm with copyright and trademark laws, all Looney Tunes and DC Comics branding was removed, which led many of the rides and attractions names to receive a new name. Most notably, Roadrunners Express was renamed Beaver Landmine Ride. Superman was changed into Steel Venom, although the ride still kept its original blue and red paint scheme. And Batman was changed into Dominator. Some rides that contained no licensing were still renamed, due to trademarks by Six Flags. Serial Thriller was renamed Thunderhawk, and Mind Eraser became Headspin. In addition, the Hurricane Harbor Water Park area was renamed to Hurricane Hannah's Water Park. The Looney Tunes characters were also replaced with the Peanuts characters. Finally, the wildlife side shut down and was partially demolished. Since Cedar Fair is not a company that specializes with animals, all the animals were relocated to other Six Flags parks, Six Flags Marine World, then renamed Discovery Kingdom. In 2005, Cedar Fair invested $26 million to build a new water park on the land where SeaWorld previously sat on, called Wild Water Kingdom, which resulted in the name being slightly altered as Geauga Lake Camp, Wild Water Kingdom. The Wild Water Kingdom side had about 6 water slides and a children's water play area. Strangely, the Hurricane Hannah area remained, which gave Geauga Lake 2 water parks. This would not last long, because Hurricane Hannah's closed in 2006, and Wild Water Kingdom received a new wave pool expansion, called Tidal Wave Bay. Mr. Hyde's Nasty Fall was closed at the end of 2005. Usable parts were salvaged for Demon Drop, then at Cedar Point, and the rest was scrapped. The season was also scaled back, eliminating the spring and fall weekend operations and opening strictly between Memorial Day and Labor Day with one last weekend in mid-September. At the end of the season, many people's fears came true when 2 major roller coasters were removed. X-Flight was removed, as well as Steel Venom. The Bel Air Express monorail was also removed at this time, and it was scrapped. Steel Venom was relocated to Dorney Park, where it now currently is still operating as Voodoo, now known as Possessed. X-Flight was moved to Kings Island, where it was renamed Firehawk, and it operated there until 2018, before it was torn down for scrap, and replaced with a new B-Amp, M-Giga coaster, named Ryan, leaving only 2 Vekoma Flying Dutchman models operating. Many fans believed that Geauga Lake's time was on the clock and sadly, they were right. In 2007, the park opened with only one new attraction, LEGO Racers Adventures in the 4D Theater. On June 16, the Raging Wolf Bob's coaster shut it down permanently, after a train derailment. As we know, this is not good. The annual Oktoberfest festival weekend held in September every year concluded on September 16, 2007. Little did audiences realize was that this marked the amusement park's last day of operation. 5 days later on the 21st, Cedar Fair made an announcement that no one wanted to see.
Basically, our board of directors made the decision yesterday afternoon that the market demand simply isn't there to support the park as it's currently structured. The decision was made to operate the park exclusively as the water park only.
Water park only, you would close the roller coasters and all the other amusement rides, that section of the...
Cedar Fair announced that the ride side of Geauga Lake would permanently close. Despite this, Cedar Fair continued to operate the water park side, renaming it as Geauga Lake's Wild Water Kingdom in 2008. Cedar Fair also announced plans to level the property and move Geauga Lake's existing rides to its other properties. The remaining rides and remnants were auctioned separately on June 17, 2008. Many visitors returned to the park for one last visit and to hear the previews.
The coaster has been graciously and generously offered to American coaster enthusiasts and other groups. And that is not false, young ladies. Get security or get her out of here. It has been offered to ACE and other groups at no cost. Needless to say, it's a multi-million-dollar project, and you're not going to get it done with bake sales.
Eventually, the Geauga Lake subscript was dropped from the water park in 2011, and Wildwater Kingdom continued operation on the former SeaWorld site. However, on August 19, 2016, Cedar Fair announced that Wildwater Kingdom would not reopen for 2017, so the water park met the same fate and closed its doors on September 5, 2016. Until October 2016, what was left of Geauga Lake was the Big Dipper, faded walkways, concrete supports, the park's entrance, and most of the parking. However, on October 17, the Big Dipper and the entrance were finally torn down because everyone was in the process of redeveloping the site. Here's what happened to the attractions and roller coasters. The Grand Carousel now operates at Worlds of Fun. Texas Twister was relocated to California's Great America until it was removed in 2016. Shipwreck Falls was relocated to Celebration City, where it only operated for a year before it closed down with that park. Beaverland Mine Ride was relocated to Papy Park in Ivry-l'Évêque, France, where it still operates as roller coaster. Headspin was relocated to Carowinds, where it was renamed Carolina Cobra, but it's now called the Flying Cobras. Thunderhawk was sent to Michigan's Adventure, where it received a new color scheme, but still has its original name. And finally, here are the following 3 attractions that were sent to King's Dominion in Dawswell, Virginia. Dominator is still operating there and still has its longest record. The Ferris Americana is also still there, and El Dorado was sent there, but it's no longer in operation. However, not all of Geauga Lake's rides were relocated. The coasters and attractions that were discarded with the park were Double Loop, which was sold to Cleveland Scrap for $23,000. Villain, which was also sold to Cleveland Scrap for $2,500. Raging Wolf Bob's, which remained standing but not operating for 5 years, before it was eventually demolished in 2012, 2013, and 2014. Skyscraper, Gold Rush, the Harbor Theater, Time Warp, Grizzy Run, and like I said before, the Big Dipper was put up for auction on eBay and was torn down in 2016. So what's the future of Geauga Lake? Wildwater Kingdom's former parking lot has been turned into a subdivision, called the Geauga Lake District. The development, known as Renaissance Park at Geauga Lake, included street names like Carousel Court and Dipper Way to pay tribute to former Geauga Lake attractions. They're also gonna redevelop the original amusement park side, which is about to change. Geauga Lake is obviously gone, the memories will clearly live on. The fans will never forget the worlds that were adventured. In my opinion, the closure did make sense, because there weren't any major hotels in the area, Cedar Point was only 3 hours away, and there weren't a lot of highways. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. By the way, I'm actually all out of ideas for a historic camp, Defunct episode, so if you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments. Be sure to smack the hell out of that like button and subscribe. Peace out.
Can't you see the light in me? Can't you see the light I see? And every time we cross I feel the stabbing in my heart. Your love is razor sharp.